Welcome to Frank and Upfront. I am your host, Mr. Franklin. A very special welcome to all of you who are joining me here on this podcast. I invite you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified of weekly uploads. If you wish to advertise on Frank and Upfront, please email me at frankandupfrontpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to donate to my channel, you can do so via PayPal at Frank and Upfront. Frank and Upfront is moving to a new channel. Starting November 1st, Frank and Upfront will be uploading exclusively to the new channel, the one with the golden microphone at the bottom of this picture right here. Which means that the final podcast that will be uploaded to the original channel, the outgoing channel, will be the previous weekend, the weekend of October 25th. The channel will officially become defunct on October 31st, and from November 1st onwards, I'll be uploading exclusively to the new channel. This week's topic, the Emancipated Juvenile. Now, in one of my more recent podcasts, I believe is the one I had recorded shortly before going off on break, I had discussed the difference between the age of consent and the age of majority. And I do believe that the age of consent is too low and the age of majority is too high. I believe the age of majority is high for a reason, and particularly to discourage boys in particular from stepping into their manhood and their kingsmanship, and to discourage them from embracing their rites of passage into manhood and doing what young men are supposed to do and secure resources for his family. It's an infantilization mental programming that targets young men in particular, because even though females are also subjected to the age of majority, and even though their powers of autonomy is limited by the age of majority, they are not as much affected as boys because they are not the ones charged with the responsibility of securing resources and starting a family. That's a man's job. And you can't be looking to infantilize young boys as they're coming of age. Something about that is very wrong and very selfish, particularly on the part of relatives who refuse to allow the young man to grow up as he should. People don't seem to realize, but it's abuse. It is abuse to expect a young man who is coming of age to function in a capacity less than what he's supposed to be functioning in at his age. It's abuse. And it's a misuse of who you are. That's not who you are. And that's not your use. Therefore, it's a misuse. Therefore, it's an abnormal use. Therefore, it's an abuse. The word abuse comes from abnormal usage. You're not there to fit inside people's boxes and to be serve as entertainment for their selfish ego. You are here for a mission. You are here for a good time, not a long time. You're here to enjoy your life and not be someone else's prisoner. Therefore, if you find that you are not able to live up to your maximum potential as a young man who's coming of age, therefore, if you're being abused, there is an option for you. There is a way out of your predicament. And it's called the Emancipated Juvenile. You can legally file for an emancipated juvenile status in a court of law in many states in the United States, and it varies by state, but most states would see minors applying for emancipation status between the ages of 14 and 16. You can file for emancipated juvenile status, present your evidence. Your parents will then be summoned to court for a hearing. And based on you being able to prove that you are financially capable of taking care of yourself, the judge will grant you limited powers of autonomy to act as if you were a legal adult in the capacity that you'll be able to financially be responsible for yourself. I have found an article from this website called thebalance.com. An article on what you need to know to become an emancipated minor. And it's written by Rachel Morgan Cortero, reviewed by Ebony J. Howard, and it was updated on May 8, 2020. That was a few months ago. Today's date is September 13th, 2020. So it's still relatively fresh. And the article reads as follows. If you're considering becoming an emancipated minor, there are several legal and financial steps you'll need to take. From petitioning the courts to getting insurance to making a budget Read on for everything you need to know before setting out on your own. What it means to be an emancipated minor. In short, becoming an emancipated minor means that you are considered an adult before age 18 and are legally separated from your parents or legal guardians. It is important to keep in mind that while 18 is the legal age in most states, it can vary. Be sure to check with the rules in your state. Being emancipated means your parents are no longer responsible for providing you with food, clothing, and shelter. It also means that you can get a work permit, earn money, and decide what to do with your earnings. You could also legally live on your own and do other things like rent an apartment or sign a legal contract. Legal actions. The most common way to be emancipated from your parents is to petition the court. To be emancipated, you'll need to be at least 14 to 16 years old, depending on your state, and be able to prove that being emancipated from your parents is in your best interest. It's also helpful if you can prove that you can support yourself financially and are capable of making your own decisions. It helps your argument if you have already set up living arrangements away from your parents or guardians. Basically, you have to prove that you are up for the task of being on your own and living like an adult, budget, bills, and all. Steps to becoming emancipated. The process of becoming legally emancipated is relatively simple. First, you'll have to file a petition for emancipation with the courts, which includes why you want to be emancipated, as well as proof that you can support yourself financially. Next, your parents or guardians will be notified of the petition and a hearing is scheduled. Oh, and by the way, I must add that if your parents are narcissistic and they have been notified of the petition, you might want to stay at an aunt or a cousin or some place else where they can't reach you. Someone you can trust who is not going to give away your whereabouts to your parents, if in fact they're narcissistic. But there has to be a reason why you're leaving in the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that they are narcissistic, and I'm going to advise you to not stay in the same house as them or be around people who are going to rat you out. Okay, let's continue. During the hearing, the judge will hear your case for emancipation, then make a ruling based on the information presented. If you are granted emancipation, you'll get a declaration of emancipation, and you should keep this on hand and have copies readily available. You'll need to provide them instead of parental consent in the future. So then if you're going on a field trip at your school, instead of providing a parental consent form, you just flash your Declaration of Emancipation instead. That's why it's there, and it also serves for if you should be signing a contract or getting a credit card or an apartment lease. before you reach the age of majority. Okay, moving on. You can also become an emancipated minor by joining the military or getting married. However, if you plan to do so by getting married, you're still required to follow your state's marriage laws. In some cases, you'll need parental consent to get married before age 18. Yeah, so then if you need parental consent and you want to get away from them and they're holding on to you for dear life, then that's kind of not going to work for you because they're never going to give you consent to get married if it means that you abandon them. Anyway, and then insofar as joining the military is concerned, that requires a high school diploma or a GED to enlist. So it's likely that the earliest you could be emancipated is age 17. You might not have time. You might be a 14-year-old going through hell. So getting married or joining the military is out of the question. If you have to become emancipated as an emergency and you're 14, your best bet is to draft up some paperwork, prove savings and fiscal responsibility to the judge, and actually go through a legal process. And you might want to lawyer up while you're at it. Financial preparation. If you're planning on legally extricating yourself from your parents, you first need to be able to support yourself financially. You'll need a job and a source of income that you can comfortably live on. A realistic monthly budget is another must-have for emancipated minors. Let me read that one again. A realistic monthly budget is another must-have for emancipated minors. Be sure to factor in the cost of housing, food, car payments, gas, healthcare, and savings. You'll also need a bank account with both a savings and checking account. No, you only need a checking account, but I guess if having a savings account is a requirement to convince the judge, then do what you have to do and then ditch the freaking savings account afterwards. If all you need is one bank account. But anyway, moving on. An emergency fund is also a great idea to cover things like unexpected expenses or medical bills. While you can start small with an emergency fund of $1,000, most experts recommend setting aside 3 to 6 months of living expenses, either in cash or relatively liquid funds. As an emancipated minor, you're also able to get a credit card. If you open it, be sure to use it responsibly and pay off the balance in full each month. Having a credit card will help you begin building credit so therefore don't shy away from it. You'll also need to obtain insurance. This includes car insurance, renter's insurance, and most importantly, health insurance. Obtaining health insurance can be costly, so be sure to factor this into your budget. Limits of emancipated minors. While you may think that once you become an emancipated minor, you can do anything that is that a legal adult can do, that isn't always the case. While the laws vary by state, emancipated minors may not be able to get married, quit school, get a driver's license, vote, or drink alcohol. However, as an emancipated minor, you will usually be able to rent an apartment or buy a home, enroll in school, earn an income, and keep it all, and make your own healthcare decisions, especially as it relates to birth control. And here are a list of sources in case you wish to pause the video. Okay, well, that was the end of the article. And, I find it very contradictory when they say that being an emancipated juvenile doesn't allow you to get a driver's license, even though they're saying you should be earlier up in the article, they're saying you should be budgeting for things like car payments and insurance and all these things, but yet you're not able to get a driver's license. What is the point of buying a car if you can't even get a driver's license? They won't even let you drive off the lot without a driver's license. Anyway, I thought that was funny. But you know something, I do believe that 14-year-olds have the mental capacity to be safe drivers, which means I believe that they ought to be allowed to obtain a driver's license, especially if they're going to be working and going to school. They might be going to school in the mornings and going to work in the evenings and getting off at some ungodly hour of the night where the buses don't run no more and they'll be stranded without a car. You know? And they might not live walking distance from where they work and go to school. And even if they did, it probably wouldn't be safe if they live in a bad neighborhood. So, and then again, what if they live in a rural town, someplace in the middle of nowhere, where there are no buses or trains, and you need a car, you know? But then again, I'm thinking now, if you're gonna be emancipated from your parents, you have the freedom to leave that town and board a train to the big city. And once you're in the big city, you could commute to work on a train. You know, you could catch a subway. But then that goes back once again to what your schedule is like, what time you get off at work. What if you get off work at 11:30 at night when the buses don't run no more, or it's a late bus and you're stranded, you know? So they might want to reconsider that, but it is definitely a step in the right direction as to what I've been saying insofar as fighting the infantilization mental programming is concerned. It is definitely a step in the right direction. I'm very thankful for it because I wasn't even aware of it back in my day when I was around that age. Because if I was aware of it, they'd never see or hear from me again. Trust me on that one. Um, which, by the way, I researched whether the emancipated juvenile is on the law books in Jamaica, and it was hard to come across such an article. So it seemed to me that for right now, it is uniquely an American law. Well, maybe it's not uniquely American, but it's definitely not in Jamaica. It might be in other countries, but it's not in Jamaica. It's not on the books, the law books of Jamaica. So, Jamaica has some work to do in that regard. Even though an emancipated juvenile in a first world country like the United States is better capable of financially taking care of himself than someone in a developing nation like Jamaica, for example. All the more reason to improve Jamaica's economic stability if, in fact, we're going to fight the mental programming in Jamaica. We have to improve the economic stability of the nation first before we can talk about emancipating juveniles. Or perhaps emancipating juveniles and having people join the workforce at a younger age would actually boost the economy and see us having larger GDP growth than in the years for which juveniles were not members of the workforce, nor were they big spenders. Something for the economists and the lawmakers in Jamaica to consider. Anyway, as I was saying before, it's definitely a step in the right direction. But the next thing we need to work on is to clarify whether an emancipated minor is or can be trusted to be a safe driver, as I suspect that they are. If you impose financial sanctions on careless driving, they will be on their best behavior and they will abide by the rules of the road, just like anybody else. The reason why people don't speed, people who are of a legal adult age doesn't speed, is because we know that if we do, the likelihood of us getting a ticket is greater. Therefore, we don't do it. First of all, we can't afford a ticket. Same thing with the minor. Minor doesn't have too much money, he's not going to speed. And that's how you keep them safe. Anyhow, now what the article did not clarify is whether the parents have to give consent for the minor to be emancipated once they are called into the hearing. So the minor files a writ. The subpoena is issued to the parents. They are summoned to court for a hearing in the case of the emancipation of their offspring. Right? What is not clear is whether the parents have to give consent for the minor to be emancipated, or whether it's up entirely to the minor and the judge. Seeing as how it was not mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and be like, well, maybe it's not the parents' right to consent to their offspring's freedom after all. There's nothing that they could really do to stop it. They could try, but if the minor wishes to go off on his own and he could prove financial responsibility, then nothing much they can really do. It's not their choice. I believe that every minor should file for emancipation status. Why? Because it will teach them responsibility if they're functioning in the capacity of a legal adult. It will teach them responsibility, and it will fight the infantilization mental programming that's been run on them in many cases since they were like two, since before they were even aware that they were being programmed to remain childlike for longer. Which is, once again, I reiterate, a very wicked thing to do. It is a corruption of nature. It is wicked to go against the very nature of one's own, the very nature of a growing young person, for the selfish benefits of one person. I cannot emphasize quite often enough how wicked it is and how it is a corruption of nature. But filing in a court of law for an emancipated juvenile status is definitely a step in the right direction insofar as fighting the programming is concerned and teaching responsibility to a minor much earlier than they otherwise would have been taught responsibility. That when they do in fact become of legal age, functioning in the adult world as an adult is of second nature to them, so they can hit the ground running. That would make for a more productive society as a whole, especially as more people jump on board with doing with insofar as functioning as such is concerned. The more people who jump on board, the better. Now, after a few generations or so, you will find a society of minors who are more responsible and more adult-like than they are now, because we have successfully fought the mental programming. And being responsible at a younger age would be natural to them. They wouldn't even have to think about it. They just simply do it, naturally, because they've been trained and they have evolved in that manner. So now we're talking about evolution. And as a matter of fact, they wouldn't even have to file for emancipated juvenile status at that point, because the power of majority would have naturally been granted to them at 15 or so, without them even having to file for it in a court of law. And that's what we're aiming towards. But it's a gradual process and a gradual step in the right direction. And I'm appealing to our leaders here on this program to think about your GDP growth, the GDP growth in your respective countries over the next 10 or so years, over the next 50 or so years, and how it will improve if in fact there are more people joining the workforce and contributing to the economy, whether in labor or in spending costs. It might improve voter turnout if, in fact, there is a future where the age of majority is lowered and 15-year-olds can then vote. Now, during the last general election in Jamaica that took place on September 3rd, about a week and a half ago, the voter turnout, from what I was told, was about 39%, which is very low. 39% of the electorate were interested enough in politics to turn out and vote. Many people have lost interest in politics. They're just not interested, point blank, period. Um, but if the voting age was lowered to include minors, they would vote more enthusiastically because it's still very new to them, right? So there would be a greater turnout in first time voters who have not yet been um, who are not yet jaded by the voting process. They'd vote more enthusiastically and there'd be a lot of turnout. And that turnout would actually make up for the numbers of people who are jaded, who are burnt out, who have lost interest in voting and politics. And it would help to boost the voting numbers and perhaps kind of steer the election day victory more in your favor. You can't complain if you don't vote. You can't complain if you don't vote. Right? So the more boots we have on the ground is the greater the chances of your candidate of choice gaining election night victory. And I do believe that including minors in the voting process by lowering voting age would actually um, increase the likelihood of that happening. Okay, so I would like to see a future where the end result of these gradual baby steps is to completely reduce the age of majority without a minor having to go to court to file a writ for to obtain the status of an emancipated minor. Now, once again, it was not clear in the article if the parents have a say. They might have, well, obviously, they have the freedom to air their grouses or whether they agree or not, but ultimately, it's not up to them, it's up to the judge. They can run their mouth all they want, but it's really up to the judge. He has a final say. Um, and there seems to have been a greater emphasis on the minor being financially responsible and being able to financially look after himself. Now, when you turn 18, your parents are supposed to turn over. Well, no, hold on. Before I even get to that, I think I'm getting too far ahead of myself here. Um, Let me backtrace a little bit to the part where I was saying that the parents may not have a say. Or there was no mention of whether or not they have a say, but I don't think they do have a say. There is a greater emphasis, however, on the minor in question being fiscally responsible and being able to look after himself, financially speaking. Get a job, apply for a credit card, apply for an apartment and actually pay the rent, buy groceries, and look after his healthcare. But be that as it may, there are several other factors that could go into whether the judge actually grants emancipated juvenile status to the minor in question. Such factors include whether the parents are disruptive, whether they're abusive, and whether the minor um, disapproves of their lifestyle choices. For example, if the minor in question was adopted by two gay parents and the minor is homophobic and he feels as though that LGBT type of community and household is not conducive to his heterosexual development, that could be a viable reason for him to file for emancipated juvenile status. And the judge might grant him such a status under such circumstances. Now, as far as abuse is concerned, the parents are abusing him. Physical abuse, I mean, come on, there's evidence, there's scratches, there's scars and bruises, right? So naturally under those circumstances, it is easier for the minor to become emancipated. In cases of emotional torment, on the other hand, the abuse is very insidious. Well, the abusers are insidious and the abuse is not so apparent. So it's going to be harder to prove. And there are some who believe that if the abuse is not physical, it's going to be harder for a judge to sign off on um, a request for emancipated juvenile status to be granted. Now, there are ways around that. You could always see a psychiatrist and present the medical records in court. And if the medical records mentions abuse in the emotional sense, that could be used as evidence. Now, if the If there's no evidence of emotional abuse or any other kind of abuse, for that matter, that is no guarantee that the judge won't sign off on your request. What if you simply just want to break free to discover yourself and to what if there's no abuse involved and you simply want to break free to discover yourself outside of your family? What if they're so overbearing and smothering that there's no way you could really truly be yourself around them? Even though that is a form of abuse as well, but the judge might grant status under those circumstances. But then again, it also depends on the actual judge. It depends on the individual. If your parents are narcissistic, there are several steps they might take to fight the emancipation juvenile process in court. And even if they can't fight it in court, they might try and find other ways to fight it. Now, as I was saying earlier, when you turn 18, your parents are supposed to give you your social security card and your passport and all of your other documents, your birth certificate, all of those documents. They can withhold those documents to prevent you from leaving. Now, you could sue them to get it back from them. Yeah, that's illegal. If you're an emancipated juvenile or you're 18, either or, and your parents are withholding your birth certificate, your social, your passport, all these things, you could sue them to get those documents back from them. They have no right to withhold those items from you. But if they are a narcissist, don't put it past them to try some bullshit like that. They will do it. But like I said, you can sue them. Anything to stop you from leaving. But then again, once you're a juvenile, once you're emancipated and you have your document, you could leave town. I would even recommend you go into a different state. Whether you're from the city or the country, doesn't matter. Go to a different state. If you're from the city in one state, you could go to the city in another state. You could go from New York to Philadelphia or Boston if you're on the East Coast, right? And they can't stop you. Oh, by the way, let me just say as a disclaimer real quickly. No juvenile has ever sought emancipation from a happy family. Let me say it again. No juvenile has ever sought emancipation from a happy, supportive, healthy family. A family who allows them their boundaries, who doesn't interfere and try to tell them what to do and how to think, and who allow them their individuality to develop as naturally as they ought to develop, even if the parents are not really in favor of how you're developing. They still allow you your space regardless. They're there to guide you, not to smother you. You know? No juvenile has ever sought emancipation from a happy, tolerant, loving, healthy family who respects and encourages their boundaries. Only from toxic piece of shit family. And that's the facts. That's reality. So if you're running away, trust me, it's something about your folks that's really shitty and toxic. And don't let nobody shame you out of doing what you're doing either. You stay the course and do what you have to do. Don't let nobody shame you. People always want to shame the kids, but they're your parents. That family is all you got. You can't disown family. Um, Family gotta stick together no matter what. And funny, the people who are saying that they're the ones who will knife you in the back without a second thought. And now they're coming to your face being cheeky with it, talking about what are you gonna do with family? Family is all you got. Get out of my face. Get out of here, man. Like, damn, people are such hypocrites. It really annoys me. People are hypocrites. Don't listen to them. Don't let them shame you. Excuse me. Don't let them shame you back to the plantation. Chances are those people are your parents' henchmen. And they're there, whether in or out the family, they're there to keep you in check. They're your handlers. Understand something. Those people are your handlers. Don't listen to them. Keep doing what you do. Now, with that out the way, there are steps that your parents will take to try and fight the emancipation process. If they can't fight it in court, despite them, they're begging and pleading and talking to the judge, trying to talk him out of it or whatever, plead their case. There's no reason, by the way, why a judge should force you to stay with your parents if you don't want to. No reason. If you want to go or you are an individual, you want to go, you're free to go. And any judge that denies you emancipated juvenile status, you're just gonna have to, and you really gotta get out of there. You're better off just making a run for it. Emancipating yourself. If emancipation will not be granted to you, emancipate yourself. Make a run for it. You may have to work off the books and rent a room from somebody who's willing to rent to you. Get a roommate or something. Or find a roommate. Find somebody who is willing to who's looking for roommates. They're all over your school. If you read the bulletin board, they're all over your school and your job, or even a gym. Look for a roommate. If you have friends, find somebody you could trust. Look for a roommate, somebody who has an apartment, who has an extra room, and you could rent a room from them, and maybe they charge you $300-$400 for the room, and you might get a shelf in the fridge where you could cook, and you could be comfortable. Right? Now, and you may just have to work off the books. But if you're going to leave town, you're not going to have any friends. You're going to have to meet people from scratch and get to know them and trust them. And your discernment as a minor may not be as sharp as it will be in the next 50 years if we continue on this path. That's why we got to continue. One of the major reasons why we should continue on this path is to sharpen the discernment of minors at an earlier age. Right? But you're, as of right now, though, in the present, your discernment may not be as sharp. So please find somebody you could trust. My advice to you, even though I'm staunchly against religion, join a church. You don't have to stay there after a while, but join a church at first just to network with people and find somebody who may be renting a room. just to have a place to rest your head at night, just to have a roof over your head. But if you gotta make a run for it, make a run for it. For your own good. If you stay around toxic people, they will rub off on you and you will become of a reprobate mind like them too. So if your folks are really shitty, you gotta go, man. You don't wait for no judge to emancipate you. Emancipate yourself. You gotta make a run for it. You may have to, if you're like 14, you may have to live and work off the books for like 4 years till you're 18. Right? 4 years. 4 years will come and go just like that. And when you're finished going through it, you will look back and realize that you have been made stronger for having gone through that. That experience will make you stronger. But I do advise you to make a run for it and maybe emancipate yourself off the record. And yeah, they might report you missing, your folks, that is, of course. But if you don't want to be found, there are ways in which to avoid. You may have to leave town. You may have to leave town. Leave town and hope that you don't run into a cop in that town who will recognize you as a missing person. You know, you gotta think, man. It's a thinking game. You gotta think your way out of a situation. If you really want to be gone, nobody can stop you. You could run away from home. Oh, by the way, if you were not able to find housing on your own, there's always teen shelters that will take you in between 16 and 25 even. They go up to 25. So yeah, if you have no problem being in a runaway teen shelter, go join a teen shelter in a new state. You gotta go out of state though. Go find a runaway teen shelter and look for work while you're at it. And go back to school while you're at it. Go get your GED, get diplomas, all that stuff. You don't have to go to college. College, I mean, if you want to, you could go later. But college is a scam. You could just get a GED, a diploma, and there's so many areas of expertise you could work in. You could be a nurse's aide, a phlebotomist, a pharmacist. Yeah, they pay very well in healthcare. So that's a very good industry for you to actually work in and get paid. And by the time you're like 22, you got your own place, you got a credit card, you got a car, you got all these things, and you're good. You're set for life. But if you know you are great, you have greatness within you, and it's being suppressed by the jealousy of your piece of shit drug addict parents, you gotta fucking make a run for it, man. I'm telling you, you gotta just go. Just go and trust the Creator. That's my advice to you. Don't wait for no judge to emancipate you when you could emancipate yourself. Even the legendary reggae singer, the late great Bob Marley, would sing, "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy. How long shall they kill our prophets as they stand aside and look?" Right? Yeah, you could be the redemption song of your own life and emancipate yourself from mental slavery and emancipate yourself from your family and your parents and even the very system itself. Go off on your own and do your thing if you know that staying around the wrong people is going to suppress your gifts and talents and keep you trapped longer than you need to be trapped in a situation that's not favorable. You're here for a good time, not a long time. You come here to enjoy your life, not be of service to others. Um, and as far as your documents are concerned, As I was saying before, you could sue your parents to get those documents back. Your birth certificate, your social, and your passport. If they're withholding those documents to control you and prevent you from leaving, sue them to get it back. Yes, you can. You don't even have to interact with them. You just have to. You don't have to interact with them outside of court, that is. And even in court, they're not supposed to talk to you. They're supposed to talk to the lawyer when they're being cross examined. You don't have to interact with them. And while you're at it, you might as well file a restraining order because a narcissist is not going to respect you. If they don't respect you enough to give you your damn documents back, they're not going to respect your personal space either. So you might want to file a restraining order and kind of force them to give you your fucking documents and not deal with you or talk to you in any other way besides that. You have to put your foot down and let them know that you're not playing around and that you're very serious. Only then will you get respect. You have to use the justice system to twist their arm to give you what you want. And if you're running away, if you're running away without the certificate of emancipation that you would have gotten through the legal process, boy, I don't know. Here's what I suggest to you. Run away first and then turn around and legally file for emancipation. Legally file to adjust your status to an emancipated juvenile. That's my advice to you. Run away first, and then once you figure shit out, you turn around and file to adjust your status to an emancipated juvenile status, an emancipated minor status, But once again, if you're suffering from something as insidious and as elaborate as emotional torment, there's no way around it. You're just gonna have to. Many people have their hang-ups about seeing a shrink. They feel it's confirmation of insanity. No, it's not. And in this case in particular, all you're really doing is to gather evidence. You're going to use the medical records to prove the torment you've been going through at their hands to help prove your case. So, I would say run to a different state, use your discernment to make friends and find a place of safety because people will exploit you outside of your family. If you thought your family was bad, forget it. The outside world is cruel. And people are looking to exploit you. They see that you're young, you're on your own. People are looking to exploit you for labor purposes and money and sexual purposes. And just in every way, shape, or form. So you got to use your discernment and develop street smarts. And if you have been sheltered all your life, you're probably not going to have too many street smarts. You're just going to have to figure it out. Wise up. Use your discernment to judge people. Find a place of safety and a person who you feel safe with. And once you're settled in your new state, see a shrink over there. Collect all of your medical records based on what you've been telling the shrink. And use it to legally file for an emancipated juvenile status. You might fear that if you try to go through the legal process and the judge rejects your application, you're going to be forced back to your parents. You could run away again. You could just run away again. Oh, here's an idea. Why not steal your documents? It's yours, right? It has your name on it. Your social, your birth certificate, those are yours. You can't steal what belongs to you. They're stealing from you by keeping your documents, withholding them from you as a means of control. So you are justified in taking what's rightfully yours. It's not even stealing at this point. You're just simply taking what's rightfully yours. So maybe you watch them and see when they fall asleep and dig up and try and find, or when they go when they're away at work, you know. But if they have those documents properly and thoroughly hidden, it might be very difficult for you to try and find those documents without leaving evidence that you've been searching around in your parents' personal belongings. By the way, please take only the documents and none of their personal belongings. No money, no jewelry, nothing. Just what belongs to you and that's it. I would never advocate you stealing from your parents. So take your documents if you know where to find them. Perhaps when your parents are at work, and you can run away again. There are so many ways to gain independence. If you believe in what you're doing, and you believe that what you're doing is the first step towards fighting a generational curse of an infantilization programming that was meant to weaken you and keep you dependent forever so you don't realize your full potential. As an individual and to fulfill your purpose of being here on this earth. And there's no telling how much longer you have, you know? You want to squander your life away only to realize that you didn't have long anyway. What if you don't live long? What if you live to be... I don't want to put no age out there. I don't want to put no number out there, but you could... What if you die young? All of your life would have been squandered away serving someone else's agenda. That can't be what you want. But there's so many ways to get around it and fight the program and fight whatever little program they're using to keep you trapped. There's so many ways around it. You gotta think your way out of this. You gotta think your way out of your situation. So many young kids and young people are suffering silently at home. People think, oh, everything is all right, everything is all peaches and cream, but they're suffering. There may not be any physical scars, but they're suffering emotionally and spiritually. They are being spiritually suppressed. They're suffering. They're crying out for help. And then when they do things like jack a car and speed and crash, and those are loud cries for help. Or you think, oh, it's a problem child. No, no, no. That kid's acting out. He's being tortured at home, and it's a cry for help, and he's acting out. But somehow you think it's the kid's fault, right? You think it's a problem child. No, he's acting out. Someone is doing something to him. When kids become problem children, they or when they become a problem child, um, it's usually that it's not. It's usually that they're it's a cry for help. It isn't that they're bad kids. It is a cry for help, and you got to stop and really find out what's going on with you. Why are you acting like this? You never used to jack people's cars. Like, why are you doing that all of a sudden? You gotta, if you really care, you gotta talk to the kids, find out, be a mentor. You don't know what they're going through. They could be suffering in silence. You don't know if they're being yelled at behind closed doors, abused behind closed doors, and there are no physical scars, so there's no empirical evidence, but there's evidence in their behavior. If you care as an adult, someone who could behave in the capacity of a big brother or a mentor to these troubled kids, be a mentor. Talk to them. Find out what's going on. If they feel safe with you, they will confide in you. And you should be prepared to help them. No telling what they're going through. They're silent weapons for quiet wars, and people are out here suffering in silence, and we think everything is all right, and it's not. If they confide in you and they believe that being an emancipated juvenile is the best option for them, don't talk them out of it. You could be talking them to their deaths. Don't talk them out of it. Help them. Find out why they feel that way and see if you could offer your expertise as I'm offering my expertise here on this program. Play this podcast for them. Let them know that they have an advocate in Mr. Franklin from Franklin Up Front. Let them know. I've been through it too. I know what it feels like. I was in the thick of it, right alongside them. I can give them advice. I know what it feels like. He who feels it knows it. So many things you can do to escape an abusive situation, become the best version of yourself, lead beautiful, wonderful lives, and have a most endearing future. But it all starts with breaking the family curse, becoming an emancipated juvenile, whether through your own actions or that of the legal system. Survive first and foremost, and then find out what your purpose is in life. Follow your purpose and the directions of the Creator. But above all else, most importantly, if you were once a troubled teen and you escaped and became emancipated, that's not for you to think you're better than anybody else. You now have a responsibility. To whom much is given, much is expected. It is your responsibility, if you know that what I'm saying is true, if he who feels it knows it, and you know that I'm right, and that I'm not encouraging kids to rebel and run away from home, a home that was meant to protect them, that would be bad because they're leaving behind supportive people to go into this cruel, god-awful world who only cares to use and exploit them. I would never, ever encourage a kid to run away from a supportive family. And in fact, whether I did or I didn't, it wouldn't matter because they wouldn't run away from a supportive family. These are troubled kids. These are abandoned kids, neglected kids. They were even neglected to begin with. Whether or not they physically leave the building, it doesn't matter. They were already being neglected to begin with. Those are the kids who should be emancipated. They're already being neglected as it is. What difference does it make if they actually leave the building and become emancipated and make it official? What difference does it make? I am only encouraging the troubled kids, the neglected kids, to find their path in life. Not the kids with supportive families, healthy families. For them to leave that supportive situation and try and make it out here in this cruel world prematurely, they have to do it. They have to do it eventually. But for them to do it prematurely while they're still very young, and there's so many people out here looking to exploit them in more ways than one, I can't encourage that. This podcast is not for kids with supportive families. It's for neglected kids. And whether or not I encourage these kids with supportive families to abandon their family is irrelevant. They wouldn't leave anyway. This podcast is for the neglected kids. The kids who need help, kids who are crying out for help and support and don't know how to do so because they think, especially if it's a boy picnic, he thinks that asking for help is weak, he's supposed to be macho. Yet they're infantilizing him though, right? Funny story about that. Funny story about how they're infantilizing him, but he's expected to be macho and asking for help is weak and pathetic, and so he finds ways to lash out. And more often than not, his behavioral problems are a cry for help. Recognize man tears when you see them. This is what man tears look like. Behavioral problem in troubled teens. Lashing out, slashing tires, burning things down, stealing cars, speeding, reckless endangerment, bullying the other kids in school. Those are man tears. That's an example of what a man tear looks like. Troubled kids lashing out, crying for help, don't know how to do it, so they act out. Because actually approaching somebody with their problems and asking for help is weak and pathetic, yet they are having an infantilization mental programming being run on them through no fault of their own. Anyway, back to my original point. If you benefit from this podcast in any way, and you know what it's like, you've been there, and you know that I'm right in encouraging troubled teens, neglected teens to actually seek emancipation, and you survive your teenage years, to whom much is given, much is expected. All I ask in return is that you help other teens out of their situation, out of their conditions. If you have money, lend money, give aid and support, if you have it. If you don't have the money, give words of encouragement based on your experience. It doesn't cost you anything but your time. Help some kid who needs help. Help some kid who needs help, who is in the situation that you were once in. Give back, same as how someone turn around and help you. You should likewise turn around and help somebody. The only way you look down on somebody is if you're helping them up. Never to look your nose down at them in a condescending manner. Never. Only to help them up. All I ask in return is that you help those who are in need of help, who are in this predicament for which you were once in, that they may escape your fate as you did. Next week's topic: the importance of choosing your relationships. I hope you'll join me then. I am Mr. Franklin. This has been Frank and Upfront.